Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. Sorry we had a little bit of a technical problem just a minute ago with getting online, but thank you for joining us for this live stream. I've got my guest today, Veronica Romney from My Modern Brand. She and we are going to be talking about crisis, as we all know is currently happening on multiple fronts, and how us as marketers can kind of deal with that. So without further ado, Veronica, say hi and welcome.
Hi guys, it's nice to be a part of this group. So thanks, Jim, for having me.
Yay! No problem. We'd love to have you on. So let's talk about this topic. It seems to be pretty hot right now. I don't think I could have a perfect or more perfectly timed topic than this one, for sure.
Yeah, well, and first we have coronavirus. Well, I mean, even before that, Kobe Bryant, right? So if you had any marketing campaigns slated, any emails that were slated, like anything that you had like pre-scheduled to go, and then you have Kobe Bryant, which I feel like the world mourned for him. Then we have COVID-19, and my entire family gets it, right? Like,
no, you told me that. That's so horrible.
My mom's hospitalized. My grandfather was hospitalized. Everybody, I mean, probably 8 members of my family in Florida all got it. And so if you had sent me a stupid email during that time, I will remember you forever, company. So, right. So there's sensitivity because you don't know exactly who's being affected by what. And now, of course, with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter and what we're seeing over the weekend, it's been a really crappy year.
It's been a long year. It's been a long year.
Yeah.
It's 6 months in.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So let's maybe talk about. I don't know what you want to open up with first, but maybe we can talk about like marketing tone and tonality of how people are currently marketing. I know that I get a plethora of emails almost every single day, and it's always like, in these challenging times, or something ridiculous, or they're the insensitive Facebook ads with masks and stuff. So let's talk about that. I think that's going to be a great topic that we can cover today.
Well, so a couple things. Let's start with, what is marketing like when it's not bad? And I feel like we have been very fortunate for a very long time where the economy has been good, like bull market, all of those statistics that you see running around, like we had a really good run. And I think a lot of us saw our businesses thriving. We were I think, and our marketing reflected that kind of attitude, that tone or tonality of like, everything is good, chase the carrot. I feel like most of the marketing that was out there was aspirational marketing, which is helping people achieve more than they have today. So like, you were basically responsible to take somebody from wanting to having, and you being like the mechanism or the product or the service or the coach that took somebody from what they wanted to what they had or have because of your services, product, or offering in the marketplace. So I felt like most of the marketing that was out there was aspirational, which is basically chasing the carrot. And now I feel like if you have not yet adjusted your marketing message to be avoiding the stick as opposed to chasing the carrot, you're already behind. And I think understanding consumers, understanding human beings, understanding customers, like we either chase for things that we don't currently possess, or we try to avoid sticks or pain points or frustrations in our life. And I would say in 2020, we are very much avoiding sticks more than we are chasing carrots.
Right. I would totally agree with you there too. I think people are probably, well, I don't think they're still launching these kind of campaigns. I think they did have a lot of preloaded stuff, and they pressed the send button and they just got a really bad reaction. And then I think that they've also almost overcorrected to the point now where it's like so sensitive and so like repetitive that it's like, I can't function with that kind of marketing. Like, it's really, really difficult as a consumer of anything really to go from one extreme to another. And, I would feel bad today. Like, if anyone has been marketing in the last like week or two, I don't know. Like, if I saw a Target ad today, probably not a good time to go to Target. So, it's like those kind of things. I mean, I get it from a large enterprise stance where they have to proceed with marketing. They have these budgets and the creatives and everything set aside, but it's just how do you deal with that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's the immediate response. Like we're seeing really great examples in Nike, for example. Like there are good examples of big brands responding appropriately and very quickly. I mean, whether it's a church organization, if you want to look at good marketing, look at churches too, right? So whether it's a church organization or a sports organization, like any big brand that is a voice for millions of, customers and consumers, like if you haven't had some kind of message at this point to represent and to showcase where you stand on this, like now it's this movement in particular, those that are quiet are those the ones that are getting in trouble. Like, how come you haven't said anything by now? Like, you're an influencer, you're a big brand, like you have to say something. So there's that acknowledgement. But like, what happens when the crisis is prolonged? Because I think in this case, it's an immediate response, and it's an immediate event that needs to, like, that you feel compelled to have a response to. But like in the case of coronavirus, or however long this pain goes on or the protesting goes on, like how do you continue conducting business in a prolonged crisis that doesn't like destroy your business with you holding your breath? And a lot of companies held their breath after coronavirus, after COVID-19. Like a lot of speakers, particularly, like we were devastated because that's where we generate most of our revenues. We go out, especially digital marketers, we go on stages for free most of the time because we do one really specific, just awesome session on a really detailed, execution marketing technique. And then we generate 2 to 3 clients plus, depending on the audience size, every time we go on stage, even if it's for free. That all stops. So how do you maintain your business, or how do you pivot your business, or how do you adapt to the conditions when it's a prolonged period of avoiding the stick?
Right. And not only that, but I mean, business owners still aren't back to reality yet. I mean, some of them aren't open. Some of them, won't be open. Some of them have been torched, or something bad has happened to them to the point where they just can't open, they can't sell. And so, I think as we crawl out of this, whenever that may be, we're going to have to obviously rebuild. But what does that rebuild look like? I know, like, one of my clients is a major sports entity, and they are like, we don't have any events happening at least until August right now. And we may not have them past that. How do we rebuild? And then in the meantime, since they don't have any like players or games going on, what content are they coming up with? And then you have these other things like, well, what's your stance? And then you've got to answer the myriad of the deluge of Twitter tweets and Facebook stuff of like, what's your stance? We want to know your stance. We want to know what's going on with this. It's like, well, like, we don't know. Like, we're doing the same thing, man. We're stuck in the same boat, all of us, until we can get to Mars. Thank you.
Well, I have about 4 tips that I do want to share today that we can probably just kind of like riff on together.
Let's do that.
But I will say that, like, not all is bad. Not all is unwell. Not every business has hurt. I mean, you look at Zoom stock prices, like there are certain businesses and certain business models. This is the best they've ever been. Like anything virtual, right? Crushing it. If you are a homeschooling expert, we worship you. Right? There's certain businesses, like I think about network marketers. Network marketing businesses are crushing it right now, because if you were furloughed, if you were fired, if you starting a home-based business is like a really good time for network marketers. So there's certain business models that are doing exceptionally well, and they've adjusted even more so, and they've been even more generous. And then there's others like speakers and airlines and travel and conferences, and I mean anything that really, like, hairdressers just barely started going back to work with masks on. So like there's certain businesses that really, really hurt. So I can share my screen. Yes.
Yes, you can.
I can. So let's do
through the magic
of,
I can put it up.
Okay, great.
Bam.
So let's talk about some of the things that I have found in my lane of expertise, and also just working with a lot of, my own clients and watching a lot of influencers and what they're doing. And so we'll go through some of the tips that I have seen work. So we've talked about this a little bit already.
Veronica, real quick too, I want to say that anyone who's watching us right now too, if you have questions, please feel free to leave comments in the YouTube comment section. We'll actually be able to see them live, and we can put them up on the screen. If your questions are not great, we will not put them up on the screen. So just ask some really good questions. We'd love to see them if we have any. So thanks. So go ahead, Veronica.
Well, I didn't realize that's a good point because we are broadcasting this, but it'd be good, I think, also for Jim and I to know, like, if you feel comfortable sharing in the comments, what are you struggling with the most? Like, what is the number one question that you have, or the concerns that you have about marketing your business or trying to generate business in this particular climate? Because that would be very helpful for us to know and to craft our messaging for you as well. So I'll keep going, but I would love for you to start putting that in the comments and having a little bit more engagement. So let's start with shifting your tone. So I was one of the poor souls that was running Facebook ads pre-COVID and then post-COVID. And it was very immediate to see what had happened and like how much, anyways, like, especially when you have interruption ads, when you're running social media ads. I didn't go to social media with a problem. It's not like I go to Google search and I search something that I need or that I'm thinking about. When I'm on Facebook, I'm pretty much just killing time. And a lot of people are on social media because they're at home and they don't have somebody peering over their shoulder. So if you're running those type of kind of scroll type ads, not search based ads, but if you're running scroll ads, like, you know, depending on what's going on in the world, it dramatically affects your results. And so I had to shift my tone even in my ads. And if you have only been using ads, especially Facebook or Instagram or social media ads at all, to just generate traffic and have not used it to do A/B testing, you are very much missing out. Especially right after COVID happened, I was seeing cost per clicks as low, you know, as cheap as what I used to see in like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, which, I mean, we haven't seen those numbers forever. And there are definitely advertisers that like dominated with those metrics, you know, having cost per clicks that were like 30 cents, 40 cents, 50 cents, which is unheard of. And now they've all spiked back up. But what I started to do first thing was I just started to A/B test my messaging. I had ad creative that was doing super, super well. But I wanted to start tweaking the content, like the actual ad copy itself, to see, you know, where is the tone landing. And so like pre-COVID, when we were all aspirationally marketing, you know, our consumers and our prospective customers, you know, the biggest concern that I would hear from like my clients, you know, these kick-ass like female entrepreneurs that were trying to balance their home and their, you know, their businesses. The biggest frustration I felt from them that I kept on being told was like, I'm worried I'm coming off too salesy. That was like a big thing. Like, I'm coming off salesy. I don't feel like I'm being authentic. I hate sales. It makes me nervous. I get sweaty pits. Like, those are literally some of the comments that I was being shared. And so like my original ad on the left that I'll read, because it's probably hard for you to see it, was like, worried you're coming off too salesy or not enough. Why is it so hard to find the right words to get the right person to say yes to the right thing that's for them, especially when you know that if they just say yes, not only does their life improve, but you get to grow your business and help that person in the process. So that was an ad I was running beforehand that was doing really well for me. I was having click-through rates over 2%, and I was generating leads for like $2, right? So I was happy with that. And then of course, after COVID, it's not so much like, are you worried that you're coming off too salesy? I started changing the messaging. I didn't want to change the creative yet, but I started changing the message. And the message changed to, worried you're going to offend more than help during this health crisis. It's a delicate time right now for those of us who sell products, solicit services, or even run a nonprofit. As entrepreneurs and small business owners, our work hasn't stopped even if the world has. And so the copy was very much different. And instead of salesy, it was like, are you worried you're going to offend? Like, it was a little bit more aggressive. And like immediately my original copy became like 2 to 3 times more expensive. The relevancy score like decreased. I had a higher cost per click and my click-through went down after COVID. But with the new copy, it popped up. And now I was getting the same kind of results with the new copy that I was with my original copy. So my biggest tip to you is, from a like marketing testing goes and affordability of running tests, there's obviously surveys that you can conduct, but I love to use Facebook ads to test different marketing messages, different ad creatives. So if you're worried about sending a mass communication or a mass message to your existing customers or anything like that of that nature, a really great way to do that is just to go on Facebook ads, target people that are not on your email list. You specifically exclude them. and you can start testing different messages.
Yep. No, I totally agree. I mean, messaging is so important these days. I mean, crisis or none, if you have the wrong message for the wrong product, it's just going to flop in your face. Facebook is a great testing ground for that.
Yep.
I've used it religiously when we wanted to test for our own stuff, and it works out really, really well, where you don't have to spend a ton of money and you get to see results fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
awesome.
So one of the things that I share this, and I feel like most marketers know about this resource, but in the event that you don't, one of the things that I'm constantly using is Facebook ads library. Okay. And so because now Facebook is mandated to, like, they have to disclose why you're being targeted. So like if you see a sponsored ad and you see the little menu, kind of like that right arrow, down arrow that you click on, like, why am I seeing this ad? You can see your ad preferences that Facebook finds that you're interested in. So you can actually audit that for yourself. But facebook.com/ads/library, you can search, you can basically type in any advertiser and they will show you all of the ads that that advertiser is running currently. And when they launch them, how they're, like, you see everything. You see their copy, you see their ad creative, you see the headline, you see the subtext, like you see everything that they're running concurrently at this moment. And if it was flagged, if it was not flagged in the past. And so I am, as opposed to just like scrolling through my Facebook feed to see what's going on, I just go into Facebook ads library and I type in some of the most successful advertisers that are spending millions of dollars on a monthly basis. So Facebook actually cares about them. And I have a pulse on the situation. Like I have a pulse as to how their marketing messaging is changing, because the leaders kind of set the tone. So if you have the top 10, 20 marketers starting to shift their messages, and that's exactly what we saw with like the Black Lives Matter. There's, at the beginning, it was a select few influencers that felt comfortable to say anything. Now, if you're an influencer and you haven't said something by now you look worse. So, because now everybody's doing it. So I tend to try to make sure that I have a pulse on some of those really popular advertisers just to see what they're doing, because it sets the tone for the rest of us. They're running the 4-minute mile. Now we are the ones that are going to start running that 4-minute mile right after them, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think too, like the rationale for all of this is also, these large companies are spending millions and millions of dollars in advertising budget all the time. And I know, like, at least at GoDaddy, they had, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 people that were working on these ads nonstop. And so they were crafting new messages all the time. And so the reality is, well, why don't you just let them do all the work and you just reap the rewards off of it? And then this is a great tip for that, right? You're basically getting the inside scoop on what these large companies are doing as far as their advertising is concerned and the messages that they are putting out. And then you can mimic those same things for your own advertising and spend less money, making errors and mistakes. So this is great. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I do this a lot. And I also try to find ads that have been running for months at a time, because at that level, if they've left an ad running for months at a time, it's because it's been extremely profitable for them. If not, they would never allow it to run that long. And so I really like to look for ads that have been going for a while. But it's also nice to see the ads that they just started that morning or the day before, just to see like what they are trying and testing and things like that. So it's a constant bookmark tab that I open up on a daily basis just to make sure I have a pulse on like those that are setting the pace in my lane or my space. If you're a software provider, there are tons of software providers that are also running ads that are also setting the tone, whether it be Salesforce or any of the digital marketing, software providers that are out there, Infusionsoft, HubSpot. Like, these are things that I think everybody should have a pulse on, depending on what your offering is in the marketplace.
Right. Yep. I totally agree.
Okay, so the second tip that I have for you, and this tip goes for my beloved fellow speakers more. This is definitely the one that influenced this tip, but I think it can be applicable for many people. I feel for agency owners right now as like a digital marketing agency owner. I sold my agency just this last summer in 2019, but I'm part of this very, very large Facebook group with like over 100 agency owners. And that was like the very first thing that we started to notice that they were all commenting on, beyond like PPP funds, was also like, are clients calling you to cancel? Are clients suspending services? Are they pausing their Facebook ads or their Google AdWords accounts? Or like, what's happening? What are you seeing? We're getting this phone call. And it was just a constant drip in the Facebook group that I was a part of. And I'm like, okay, like, Stages are gone. You can't generate new business that way. And now you have some of your existing, monthly reoccurring revenue also being suspended or paused. And like, that's a really scary situation when you still have that monthly nut that you have to support in payroll and such, right? So one of the first things that I started to do, because now that I've sold my agency, like I'm all in, like I'm a Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi speaker, like I'm a keynoter, like I go out and it's a big part of how I generate my business and my revenue, right? And so what OPA is other people's audiences, right? So what I started to do, I got an executive assistant and I pay her about $20 an hour. She is US based, if that helps anybody.
So nice.
Right?
So nice.
That helps anyone. She works about 10 to 15 hours a week for me. And the single project that I gave her was we have to outbound and I need to replace physical stages with virtual stages immediately. So that would be podcasts, that would be live streams, that would be virtual summits, that would be anything, because the physical congregation has now become a virtual congregation. And I can either spend a crap load of money trying to build my own audiences, which I was taking advantage of the cheap Facebook situation, but still that just takes time, or I can be a guest on someone else's stage, virtual stage. And so me and Courtney, her name is Courtney, we were crafting and coming up with templates and scripts to do outbound, like, hey, podcaster, hey, you, hey, this person, like, and then if they said a no, or if they said a yes, it was still like, okay, great. Is there anybody else that you recommend that I would also, get in contact with? Like, that's all that we did. And we tracked everything. We have a massive spreadsheet of all of our outbound efforts. How many have been a yes? How many have been a yes, but contact me in a month? I already have it, we've already batched this month. Like, we have been on it, and with tremendous results. Like, I've been on a whole bunch of podcasts and virtual summits and things like that. And that has helped me replace the income that I lost from the physical stages. So if you have not switched your physical stage strategy to generate new clients into a virtual stage strategy, that's a huge missed opportunity too.
Yeah, I think there's still some confusion. I mean, and I'm shocked that we're not the only ones. I thought we were unique. How dare you? But no, you're fine.
You're my
that's all that matters, and I will copy and paste that clip. No, I think that there's a lot of confusion. I mean, us as running events and now getting into this virtual stage. I mean, for us, we were like, oh, we'll have a couple physical events every year, and we'll create this community in like a year from now, and we'll figure out what we're going to put in it, to complete 90-degree turn to hey guys, guess what, we're gonna have to cancel Napa. So that's done, and it looks like we're not gonna have any more physical events, so that's done. And then now it's like, well, we've got virtual, but we're completely unprepared for it. The community, we have no schedule, like nothing like planned for it. Like, well, sounds like a perfect time to launch it, so we launched it. And then luckily, like, we've put in a lot of the effort that would have gone into our physical events, we've now put into the virtual stuff, aka getting better equipment, using things like this to be able to stream, and then other stuff we now have our 3 virtual events too, like getting those things set up and running those. And it's different. It's different and it's challenging. But we hope that by doing this, one, it forces us to diversify and forces us to, get out of our little slump. And then 2, it allows, I think, greater visibility for people like you and other speakers that want to, promote themselves. Where else are they going to do it? I mean, it's either this or it's advertising. That's it. Like, there's nothing else. So it's challenging for sure. That's awesome.
I was, I'll get to that story in a second, but I was helping a bigger influencer run a 27-day challenge. And 2 of our guests was Ryan Dice and Roland Frazier from Traffic and Conversions, like arguably one of the largest marketing, in-person conferences ever, right? And big names, lots and lots of people. And they were discussing between the 2 of them, like, okay, they've had to now basically take their in-person event and convert it into a virtual experience. But what everybody was notating, these big like organizers at that level, was like, the amount of overhead and cost to run an in-person event is astronomical. Like between like,
Oh,
I mean,
I know.
you know, right? Just
Oh,
the
I know.
venue, the staff, the food, all it's just, it's unbelievable, right? And he was saying now that we've gone virtual, not that Zoom doesn't cost money, not that hiring a virtual conference organizer, management company isn't expensive, but those two comparisons, there is no comparison. It's obviously way more affordable for them to do a virtual summit or virtual event as far as like just hard cost. But then
Yeah, totally.
what they're both noticing is like, when you run an event in San Diego, California, you're only going to have a select amount of people that are willing to travel to San Diego, California, or Boca
In
Raton,
normal time.
or
In normal.
like
Yeah,
exactly.
normal.
Now, when you have a virtual event, that physical barrier and inconvenience of hotel and flying, 6 hours across the country, gone. And so what they were notating was like their normal attendance went from like, let's say 1,000 to now 3,000 people. And then of course they were selling the same products or the same services or whatever, or highlighting it at the activities, but they were having like 3 times the amount of people buying it. So even though we were in COVID and you would think nobody was buying, they were still selling successfully $20,000 packages. And because they had 3,000 people at the event as opposed to the normal 1,000 people person event in Orlando, Florida, they tripled what they made this year than they did last year from the same event because they went virtual.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges, and especially with us in the background of us running, search summits. I can tell you that there's this weird thing when you make the switch over, which is, you don't have a lot of the overhead, aka the hotel room blocks or paying for the event spaces or a castle. But you do have some associated costs. They're much lower. But I think that the issue is that the attendee isn't getting what they got before. And I mean, everyone can listen to a speaker speak, right? A speaker can, have some great things to discuss, and you get some little nuggets at the end of the day. But the other flip side of the coin is the networking, right? So there's a couple, I know Hopin is one of the tools that are out there for virtual conferences. They seem to allow the networking thing to kind of still happen. We'll see how it runs, because I know SCJ is running their e-summit tomorrow. So I'm really ecstatic to try to see how it runs for them. But there is that component that's missing. And so, and then the one other point that I want to make too is that now you've also got this thing where it's like, it's not the same. What do I charge for it? Is it still a full ticket price, or is it something that's lower, or is it free? So there's been a lot of discussion with that. I mean, for us personally, with our summits, we wanted to just make it free for these virtual ones. If someone wanted to pay for the VIP experience, we basically just sent them a bottle of wine and said, hey, look, we're going to have a virtual tasting after this event. And if you wanted to get wine, here you go, buy a VIP ticket. If not, general admission, it's free. No big deal. And we'll see where it goes from there. Yeah. It's interesting though.
It is an interesting time. And I mean, thankfully with Zoom and Zoom breakout rooms and things like that, you can create intimacy. So like a 3,000 person event, through the use of like Insanity of like breakout rooms, you then like have groups or teams of 5 and 10, and they get super close. And then when we were running a lot of the testimonials after the fact, there was a lot of women in their testimonials that said there was no way in HE double hockey stick that I was able to ever come to this before COVID, but because it's virtual. And you would see that on the Zoom, you would see them with the kids in the background or the kids on the hip, and they were able to participate. So if your event before that was like 50-50 male, female, what we were noticing with these events, there was like 75-80% women that weren't able to attend, but now could because of the convenience of being at home and not having to leave their families. And that was massive, right? Because women do buy, and women are very much into their own growth. And so that was just a really interesting observation. But like other people's audiences is also where it's at. And I will say for me as a speaker, like humbly, there's many conferences where like, well, we don't have space for you, or your topic is too closely related to this speaker, maybe next time. And that has happened. But then when everything went virtual, they don't, because those bigger speakers want to make sure they still garner their speaking fees, like pulled out. Now there's space for speakers that are mid-tier or not famous. And so we did a lot of that too. If there was any events that said no to us in the past, we reached back out saying, hey, we noticed that you're not going virtual. Are you struggling to fill up your speaker roster? If you would like blah, 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 blah. And like that has also gotten us further into the door than maybe before. So it's just something to consider, a big tip that has helped me personally.
Yeah. Awesome. No,
cool.
Fully agree.
Okay. So the third tip, and this is more in when it comes to converting products that you have, that I have seen work really, really well, which is in some capacity, it's a short-term sacrifice, but a long-term win. And what I mean by that is you have, and I'm just going to give you examples of things that I've seen in my own inbox, if that helps. But hopefully it just like gets your creative juices flowing.
All the spam.
Yeah. But like what I'm seeing a lot is where, to your point, they're waiving. So instead of like, if my product was normally X amount of dollars a month, I'm going to waive 30 days or waive 60 days or provide you my software for free, or you get to be part of my digital insiders group for the foreseeable future. And then they get set up on auto bills or subscriptions that eventually bill. But we're seeing a lot of people do that. Like some of their core, I know Ryan Dice did this with his, but like some of their core products that people spend money on, they were giving it to free. They had a ton of leads, a ton of people come in to get the free. And of course they convert a percentage of those once it finally converts to a paid product, but it generated so much free lead traffic that they didn't have before. So we are seeing a lot of people short-term sacrifice some of that initial profit, but then in 30 days, 60 days, not only was their cost of customer acquisition super low, but they are converting enough that it's reaping, rewards for them. So that's one technique. Another technique, obviously, is the affordability of payment plans. Again, it's not that people don't have money, and even those that maybe were furloughed, like they're not going back to get their masters. and a lot of them are looking at this opportunity like, I'm a smart individual, I hated that job anyways, and they're almost like looking at this COVID-19 and like in an attitude of like, okay, this is my time to do what I've always wanted to do, or to pivot now because I'm being forced to do it. Where before you let complacency and the crap job that you didn't want in the first place. And so it's, like I said, I was still seeing people that got let go from their jobs still signing up for $20,000 products, but there was affordability payment plans that instead of like 20 grand one time, it was sign up today for 800, 900, and we won't bill you for the next 45 days, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they prolonged the payment plan and people were signing up.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen a lot of that stuff happening too along the same lines, especially with advertising too, is Facebook. People are just trying to say, hey, look, like if you have the ability and the desire to do this, then please come in. We'll make it affordable. We'll make it whatever you need. And I'll tell you too, like even on our event side, right? Like normally the hotels are pretty inflexible. They really just don't care because they know that if it's not your event that they're hosting, it's going to be a wedding or something else. Well, all of a sudden, they're like, we've got this really good contract for you. It includes like a 60-day out and like all these little concessions. And so they're enticing people a lot. And honestly, like it's great to see that they're trying to earn business back. It also sucks too, because you're like, you could have done this a long time ago. And like a lot faster.
You know what? I think the pendulum has swung so far, like so extreme because of COVID. I don't think we'll see virtual summits go away. And if you talk to some of the biggest conference organizers that are out there, they're like, we don't think that virtual summits will disappear and then physical, conferences will resume. She's like, one of the Barry and Blue from Stage Management, like we see this being, when it fixes itself, when COVID is no longer a thing or there's a vaccine, we see it being 50-50 because people are making so much more revenue and they're bringing more people to the event because it's virtual, that we see it being not an either or, like it's not or, it's both, an and situation moving forward.
Yeah, I think it can go into two different realms, actually. So I think that, like for us, I'll give you a real clear example. We would normally have like 150 and maybe up to 250 people coming to the events, right? And that's pretty much all we could hold and still have the quality and the stuff that we wanted.
Your events are awesome, by the way. It's super intimate. You get to know people. You go to a castle. I'm just saying.
Who doesn't like a castle?
Who doesn't like it?
I don't. They're the best.
Yeah.
Except for Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, in the dungeon.
Yeah. For us now, we're doing this virtual stuff. We're seeing, people come in, our June 12th show that we have coming up. If you haven't signed up, by the way, sign up.
Yeah, June 12th.
But our June 12th show, we have, I think, almost 400 people signed up for that.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot more people, and mind you, we're in an environment now where, 400 people to a virtual event is pretty good. I know that there's others that have thousands of people coming to their virtual events.
Yeah.
But realistically for us, that just means that there was 400 people that were interested in our branding, right? And I can maybe convert them to, hey, why don't you come to Napa in 2021?
Yep.
COVID might be over with, or it might be a good enough time to travel or whatever.
Yep.
We're willing to do that. And so for us, it's, I'd rather make the virtual events free with the back end saying, hey, come to Napa when you can.
Yep.
It may not be the right thing for you for 2021 or maybe even 2022, but we'll be there. So when you're ready, we'll be ready.
I think it's super smart, and others are having tremendous success, which brings me to another idea that I'm seeing. And you probably have seen a lot of ads advertising the 7-day YouTube channel, the 3-day channel, like lots and lots and lots of challenges. So, again, if you're doing an interruption ad, if you're doing kind of a scrolling ad, like if you're interrupting an experience, like people are challenging themselves to like come up with different ways to engage someone. And so the very, very hot technique right now is challenges. Like everybody and their mother seems to be doing some sort of 5-day, 7-day, 21-day, 30-day challenge, where at the back end of the challenge, they're obviously selling into something else. And so one of the challenges that I got to help with in the last 45 days was a challenge called Rise Up World. And it was held by Pete Vargas from Advance Your Reach. When it was all said and done, we amassed an email list of 100,000 people, brand new, in 27 days.
A lot.
Which is disgusting. Like, it's just crazy, like astronomical, like more than doubled your current email list, with no question. And it was a free challenge. But here was where there was an upsell opportunity. It was a free challenge, but if you wanted the recordings of the daily challenges, knowing that you're a busy person or you're a mom and you're homeschooling your kids, that you couldn't participate every single day of that challenge, they were selling the recordings, I think, for like $47. And that kind of gradually went up as the bigger and the bigger names came. And then the more people we got into the Facebook group, which is now over 100,000 people in the Facebook group, now you had people like Ray Forleo and Michael Hyatt and I'm trying to think, Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins. Like, you have these household names that now wanted to be a part of the challenge, that initially had said maybe no at the beginning. But when your Facebook group is 100,000 people plus, you obviously are now more attractive to the bigger names. And so it just became this snowball between, like, we had some baby speakers that like some people knew and they were decent sized names, but the bigger the group got, the bigger the names came, and it just kept on rolling. And then we started doing like a VIP. So the main Zoom was like the Facebook Live that we'd go live for like an hour and a half. But then if you paid us X amount, you could hang out in the Zoom room. We would stop broadcasting to Facebook, but then you could stay backstage with us, almost like that backstage pass. And then you would get to ask these influencers for like an additional 30 minutes, questions that only a select few could ask versus a Facebook group of thousands and thousands of people. So they just started tacking on as the challenge went on. You could buy the recordings for this much. You could do a backstage pass for this. Oh, we're going to support charity. If you donate X amount, you're going to get all of these products from these speakers. So the speakers loved it because then they got a portion of those email addresses coming to them with their free products. And you got to donate $1,000 to charity, and also in the return get all of these free online courses. So it was the hardest thing, one of the hardest things we've ever, and I had personally ever done. But millions of dollars was raised. Millions.
Yeah, the backstage pass thing actually sounds really interesting to me. Very interesting to me.
I'm glad
I'm actually just having like sparks going off right
and that's
now.
exactly what we did. We did a backstage pass.
Yeah, it's really, really smart. And so how was the way that you guys accomplished that through? Because I know that like for us, like we would do like Crowdcast and we'd have everyone on but you wouldn't have the ability to have like everyone in like a Zoom room. So like maybe you'd have to somehow be like, anyone who's in the backstage, we've got your Zoom meeting, and then you go all
Sure,
from the
you could migrate them. We did Zoom. The whole experience was Zoom. We broadcasted to Facebook and Zoom, and then we preserved the backstage in Zoom. And I think it like was like maybe 100 something people. And then we all turned everybody's camera on. It was great.
Yeah, that would be really fun. I think that's a great idea. So TJ, if you're listening, we're gonna do it somehow.
Yeah, but that like, and I think calling it a backstage pass is like a reference point that most people understand what backstage means. And that's a hard thing too. Like you have to help your customers jump that bridge between like, I was so used to a physical experience. I was used to going to an Ariana Grande concert and having my VIP pass. Like, how do you translate that into a virtual experience? You gotta take a lot of those common like nomenclatures over to help people understand, okay, this is how I can manage my expectations, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I know. Trust me, when we attach the virtual wine tasting to our event, like people are just like, what do you mean virtual wine tasting? I won't have any wine. And we're like, no. We're gonna ship it to you. And then all of a sudden their faces light up. They're like, oh my God, you're gonna send me a bottle of wine, and then the winemaker's gonna be on, and then we're gonna do this sounds amazing. Right. And then their minds are blown and they're like, oh my God, like this is great. And then that gets that word of mouth advertising out. Like, dude, I went to this event. It was virtual, but I still got wine.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would just make sure that anything that you offer for free, you just have to keep in mind that like tier 1 is free, but every experience or every undertaking that you do, there needs to be a paid tier 2 or a paid 3 tier component to compensate for any kind of advertising that you're doing. And that's exactly like we ran hundreds of thousands of dollars in ads, but everything we made 2x more than that. So like it was completely worth all of it, you know? So
no, I totally agree. Smart.
Yeah. So the last tip I have, now I've been talking a lot, but the last tip I have for you guys when it comes to like prolonging or I should say marketing in a prolonged period of crisis or avoiding the stick is what I'm calling it, is again, like I stated, not every niche and every business model has flunked or has done terrible in this situation. There, you know, personal chefs, cooking, video productions, like sports, childcare, homeschooling, like there's so many things that have converted over quite nicely when they've taken their existing offering into a virtual environment. And so what we're seeing a lot of is people tapping into new niches through partnerships or joint webinars or joint opportunities. So like this is an example of Donald Miller, who's a marketing expert, and then he taps into influencer Mike, who I can't even pronounce his last name, but he's really famous for his Profit First book. So his audience is financially minded. He has a certification program for CPAs and like, you know, financial planning experts. And they are doing, you know, joint webinars because they're both tapping into each other's networks, because marketers need financial aid and CPAs need marketing. And like, so they're unrelated, but they're related enough that they're basically borrowing and helping each other's like OPAs by joint opportunities. And we're seeing a lot of those. Like I know Donald Miller did one with Rachel Hollis. Rachel Hollis is a many things, but she's also a New York Times bestseller times 5 times over. And so now he's doing a 1-day, let me teach you how to write a book, because that's what they have in common. So, I mean, it's just really, really smart to like, you know, where do your ideal people, like who are they, profile them, of course, your ideal customer avatar, your persona, all that stuff. But you know, they still have a life outside of your relationship. They still have to do their taxes. They still have to feed their families. They still have to do a whole bunch of stuff in their existence. You know, you just go to where they're going and make sure somebody can vouch for you in that jump. And that's what's happening, is they're obviously, you know, giving each other and borrowing each other's authority and brand authority and vouching for each other and elevating them to their audiences. And it's super, super smart.
Yeah, and I'll even give an example too. So our partner winery, Bouchain, so they're in the Carneros region, very bottom of Napa Valley, and obviously for them, they're used to going from the winery to distributors to like Total Wine or Insert Bevmo, any one of those stores. And so now a lot of that is being broken up because their winery is no longer open to the public. I think they actually just opened up, but it wasn't for a while. And then you've got the channels of the distributors going down because the distributors weren't able to sell product to stores that weren't open, and so the distributor just wound up, you know, kicking the can and dying. And so you've got this weird time for them now. And so what Bouchain has done, and a lot of wineries are starting to do it, but I think Bouchain does it very, very well, is they are now doing these virtual events. And so it's like, be connected, be with Bouchain. And it's basically their virtual tastings during lunchtime, which I don't see how they get away with, but I mean, God bless them. There's must be a lot of people that can drink. Well, I guess people work
5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, right. But what they've actually started to do too is they have this new kitchen in their facility, and so they've invited chefs from around Napa Valley. Well, the chefs aren't working, so they have ample time to go do a cooking show. So they've got this now wine tasting paired with a cooking show. So it's like, oh, you know what goes great with the Bouchain Chardonnay? A leg of lamb and blah, 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 blah. So, you know, they're doing these weird mixes that are working for them. And then they're bringing it virtual so that the people who can't have those experiences now can have an outlet to have it. And it's free, which is the best part. So I think that this is a great way to kind of see where those partnerships could happen, and really leverage them to open up new audiences and to try to get more people interested in your products and services. You just have to do it in a way that's not salesy, that seems organic. Because I know, like with some of these, you know, someone's inevitably going to do the bad thing, which is to become over salesy or inauthentic to the thing, and they'll wind up screwing it up. But just be authentic.
Well, so for me, like, let me define what authentic is, because everybody needs to make money and everybody needs to provide for their families and for their staff. And if you're doing business with business owners or people that are the beneficiary of business owners, like, we understand that business still runs. But when I think of too salesy and sleazy is when, like, of a 60-minute webinar or 40 minutes is like you just pitching. Nobody wants to be pitch slapped, right? But if you're providing, like, just this conversation, we have been so forthcoming with so much value and ideas, and so if you spend the last 5 minutes saying, hey, I've loved serving you and I would love to continue doing that, here's how we can work together. And I mean, I don't have an offer for today, but if let's say my offer was this, like, I hope that you really enjoyed this. I hope that you really enjoyed the tips and the really practical tactics I was able to give you. There's more that I would wish to share. If you want to follow me on social media or subscribe to my newsletter, I would love to do that. There's nothing salesy or sleazy about that. It's like, I love serving people. I've just served you for 45 minutes. I would love to continue this conversation if you would like to have this conversation further. And that's, you know, that's up to their agency. But, like, I think people associate sales with sleazy. Not all sales is sleazy. I think if you're really good at sales, you're selling the right thing to the right person, and you're doing a disservice if you don't give them the right thing, you know, because a sleazy person will sell them if you don't.
Right. And the other thing too is, like, you could have this slide, instead of being this, you could be like, here are my plans, here are my fees, this is my hourly rate, right? And that's going to just tank horribly, right? I think everyone knows that, at least for like something like this, you're being marketed to some level. We want people to join the Digital Marketers Organization. You want people to connect and hopefully use your services in the future. And it's a win-win, because they just got an hour full of free tips and stuff for themselves. So how great is that? I mean, you can do both of them. It just has to be really authentic. And I think you nailed it too. Like, this to me is an authentic way for you to build your business, me to build my business, both of us to help each other, and then have the audience get something out of it at the same time, right?
The audience is the beneficiary of it, right? Like, us coming together and sharing our collective wisdom and collective genius and being so forthcoming of, like, you were really honest about how you're pivoting, and I'm sharing to you with, like, what I'm doing in my marketing. Like, I'm tired of the platitudes. Like, I'm tired of these, like, just do this one thing and your whole life will change. Like, it's not like that. Like, it's marketing, it's tried and true and testing, and, like, we're also coming up with stuff, just, you know, and having two people at their levels being honest about what's working and what's not working, and you, like, being honest, like, oh, that gave me an idea. Like, you're seeing this happen super authentically, you know?
No, and I think that's the truth behind it, right? Like, some people will be like, oh, I wish I could tell you, but I can't, because it's secret sauce. And it's like, your secret sauce probably isn't anything that great. It's either one, something went viral and you mistakenly had to hit on it. I had a customer where a video of their product was went live and it got 89 million views, and they were bombarded by a massive amount of people wanting their products and services, not even understanding what the cost is or any of that stuff. They wound up converting almost none of it, by the way. But they did get a lot of brand exposure, and they did get a lot of people knowing who they are now, and maybe that translates to sales later on.
If they had remarked, sure.
yeah, right. So, it's things like that where that could be a crazy one-off. But the reality is that, like take a famous actor, right? Doesn't even matter who it is, but take a famous actor. They didn't just all of a sudden become famous. They probably slaved through crappy commercials, lame things that they had to go do in order to finally become a commercial actor, to finally become a show actor, to finally become a movie actor. And then you and me seeing them like, oh man, well, they look a certain way, or they did this, or they did that. It's like, no, they suffered just like everyone else does, dummy. Like you, I mean, everything. They were serving, I think, what was it, like Brad Pitt or someone was like serving a waiter at something. It's like, that happens to everyone, but we're so dumb because we don't think about all of the stuff that had to come before that. And that's really the challenge for people to know. One, I have to do all of these steps. Some of them will fail. Some of them will be successful. And then at the end, this is my goal. And if I can get to that goal, that's where I want to be in 2 years, 3 years, whatever. So,
and I'll say this too, like, I know, and I get that there's a lot of patience and like waiting to be discovered, and it's really hard because you feel like you get these viral videos, especially like TikTok and Snapchat. You're like, these are idiots. Like, why are they getting so much attention? And I've been busting it, and I've been like hustling to a whole other level to try to like get to that position. But then I also think, to your point, like how many people have been on Oprah's show, didn't have the proper mechanics to actually convert any of that traffic? And it's happened a lot. There's a lot of people, studies of people that have been on Oprah's show, had their 15 minutes of fame, and are now broke because they didn't have the pixel tracking. They didn't have a conversion mechanism. They didn't have a lead magnet. They didn't have anything to just make sure that there was a conversation that could be continued past those 15 minutes of fame. So yes, I want to have those big, awesome opportunities, but it's all the work between now and that moment that you have to get ready to be the Justin Bieber. Like, and I say that like jokingly, but really you do. You have to put in the time. You have to nail your offer. You have to have low ticket offers, medium ticket offers, high end ticket. Like, you have to think about all of that. So when you get discovered, or you have those really great moments when you're on stage in front of 10,000 people, you're ready for that. And not everybody's ready for it, you know?
Britney Spears.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's funny. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Obviously, we'd love to have you back. Anyone who's watching, please click the subscribe button, and you'll get more shows just like this in the near future. But Veronica, thank you so much. Please reach out to Veronica if you're interested in her products and services, and or if you just want to talk to her and shoot the breeze with her. So, yeah. It's always great. So thank you, Veronica, once again. Love having you on, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.